Hey everybody, this is Henry Overton with Turnkey Solutions. Thank you so very much for taking time out of your day to join us on this important conversation about why insurance underwriters, in our experience, are starting to recommend against antivirus software for all companies. I'm joined today by Harold Robinson, our CEO, and Brandon Barrett, our Vice President of Operations. Please forgive me throughout the rest of today's conversation. I have a bit of a cold, so I may sniffle a little bit. I'll try to keep that to a minimum. Brandon, Harold, would you mind introducing yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you all for taking out time of your busy schedule. We know this is impacting everyone these days, and it impacts at a financial level too, because the insurance companies have wised up to these breaches and realized that they have paid a lot of money out. So they're doing everything they can to try to save their self money by making sure that everyone adheres to their recommended security strategies.
Mhm.
So this is impacting us as a provider, as a software and hardware provider and in the IT service industry. And this is infecting all of our customers as well for the same reasons that your insurance, cybersecurity insurance providers are jumping up their rates and jumping up their premiums because of this. So you've probably seen those increases. So this is what we're going to do to try to, to address those concerns of their industry to make you compliant. So.
Yeah, you bet.
Hey, Henry. Yeah, thanks for giving me a chance to speak here. I would say one of the things that I think that we can get out of this, or that hopefully we can bring up to everybody that's watching and listening, is the impact not just on the items like insurance and stuff that Harold's talking about, but also what we see on the support side. With my service team, of course, I get an opportunity to see on the back end of it what happens sometimes if protections are not in place, or maybe they're not configured right. And sometimes we get brought into a situation after something has happened, and we get to see the impact of it on the client, just in their business, as well as in the amount of time it takes to resolve that, remediate it, and get things back to normal where they can begin functioning again. So having a good strategy up front, picking the right products and getting them in place, getting them configured properly, and just understanding what's out there and why we need to do these things, I think is really important. And I hope we can bring value to everybody that's watching by talking about this today.
Most definitely. I appreciate that. Yeah, so it's not just insurance underwriters, but that's the one that we're gonna zero in on that. So Harold and Brandon, at any point y'all want to jump in and contribute to a specific slide, by all means, please hop in and grab raise your hand or throw something at me, and we'll toss the mic to you. So without digging in a whole lot deeper on the technical perspective, we're not going to dig into really minutia on functions and capabilities and bits and bytes here today. We're going to try to be a little bit generalist here, but it's important to understand the underlying landscape of what we're dealing with and why. This simplest example I can give is a huge hack that kind of first came to light around early December of last year. So it's been all like 4 months. It affected a company first called SolarWinds. In early December, they started notifying their customers that, or the news became aware that SolarWinds had been affected by and had basically been compromised by some Russian hackers. Now, why this hack is somewhat relevant is it gave us the opportunity in all of the IT industry and forensic researchers to really study and analyze what the hackers are doing. And it also impacted everybody in the entire United States in some way, shape, or form. In essence, the hackers were able to get into some extraordinarily high levels of the United States government and all kinds of other organizations. And what it turns out is that the hackers had been working on this specific attack for about 15 months. They had been under the hood actually doing their job. And we really don't know how long they've been preparing for the hack. Just to kind of give an example of that is the Department of Homeland Security at the very highest level, the acting secretary Chad Wolf, his was one of the emails that email accounts that had been hacked by the Russians. So this was very, very big. We are still getting news reports to this day of what the impact is, and new things are coming up. And it's unfortunately, it's not been the only massive hack that's come to light in 2021. It just serves to some degree kind of an interesting, serves as an interesting window into how this is happening, and why the specific issue of antivirus is really coming to light and coming up in a lot of the insurance, underwriting, compliance, security, and other conversations that we're having. So without digging into extreme detail there, and I just did a webinar a week ago about where we kind of dug in a little bit more onto that specific hack, and some others that are even more important or relevant. Before we go too far into that, I get a lot of questions from people saying, look, Henry, you're just talking fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And it's always the same conversation. It feels like it's always a similar thing, that we're worrying about what may happen. Well, what the SolarWinds attack taught us and showed in extraordinarily vivid color is that the Verizon data breach report and so many of the other massive reports where they try to analyze what the hackers are doing, and these big forensic companies are just not kidding. That, for example, in their most recent report, the Verizon data breach report noted that more than a quarter of attacks take months or longer. More than a quarter of attacks in their data set, and their sample set, which was thousands of security incidents, are taking months or longer. And 45% of them feature hacking. But 86% of the cyber incidents that they surveyed were financially motivated. So the hackers are very well organized, they're extremely patient, and they're getting very, very good at this. Again, to put it in another perspective, this specific SolarWinds attack became known to hackers. It became known to the insurance underwriters and the rest of the world, that the IT companies like us and SolarWinds and the news, sometime December of this year of 2020. But what we're seeing is that the hackers had gotten access to the network in September of 2019. They had accessed the SolarWinds network in September of 2019. So that means there was a full-blown, easy 15 months where the hackers were under the hood, moving around the network, exploring the servers, exploring the software, learning SolarWinds software distribution process, learning how they could best make use of the opportunity that was in front of them before anybody really knew about it. They were there for 15 months. Imagine if a thief was in your house for 15 months before you ever figured it out. What kind of damage you could imagine would be done. So in light of all that, what a lot of companies and a lot of people's response to the more common things from the last few years, or the more public ones of crypto locker, where your files get encrypted and stolen. One more thing that's important to bring up from just last year is that the Fed has a major warning for you. The Fed has a massive warning for all United States companies that it's illegal now to pay ransoms. The OFAC, the Office of Foreign Asset Control, and basically part of the Treasury Department, has announced last year that it is illegal to pay the ransom. OFAC may impose civil penalties for sanction violations based on strict liability, even if you didn't know that you were engaging with a transaction with somebody that was kind of banned by the United States government. Even if you didn't know that you were paying a hacker that was in, let's say, an enemy of the United States, even if you didn't think that they were from there, it's still illegal, and they can and probably will fine you for paying for them. Now, why are we doing that? Because if we pay the ransom, we're funding terrorism. So this is a huge initiative by the United States government to make this illegal. So, the idea that insurance underwriters, just to put it in that light, don't want you to get fined by the IRS for funding terrorism, basically, is kind of a logical connection there. So it is a big deal. And to quote a quick article from Brown and Brown, which is a huge insurance company here in the United States, and I can give you a link back to this article after the conversation. Insurance underwriters are applying much stricter guidelines than in the past, and companies that lack these controls may see increased pricing and a requirement that controls be implemented basically as soon as possible. And if you can't do that, and in some situations where you're even willing to do that, the insurance underwriters may see you as too big of a threat to even underwrite. So that's a huge telegraph in the past, or we're kind of letting you know as an insurance underwriters, they're telling you, hey, look, here's the deal. If you can't step up your game, then we are probably not going to be able to give you the same rates we were before, and we may not even be able to insure you. So again, kind of referencing that article, one of the things that they kind of highlighted is they specifically outlined some things that they're looking for and that may cause problems in the underwriting process if they don't see them dialed into the level that they want to see them, including multi-factor authentication, role-based access, like not having everybody having free reign to all your computers, business continuity planning, so having a plan that specifically addresses what happens if we get a ransomware attack, a lack of completely disconnected offsite backups, next generation antivirus. In other words, do you at least have the bare bones, really good, phenomenal antivirus that we're calling in our industry a thing called next gen AV, or lack of endpoint protection and response tools. So all of these things, and by the way, I had to summarize the list and exclude a bunch of things that are even more detailed on their website. There's a bunch more things that they're specifying. Today, we're just talking about antivirus. So the idea that the insurance underwriters are very aware of what's going on, and they're very tuned into how can they reduce their threat and the threats to you is becoming more and more clear to people like us at Turnkey Solutions. So that's what we got to get the news out to you and let you know that this is happening. So let me give you a quick little example, and we're going to kind of start dialing in some ideas here. This is an actual screenshot from one of our clients' insurance underwriting form. It's a public form. The same company uses it all the time and we've actually gotten this same form sent to us from multiple clients who all have the same insurance underwriter. So this is just, page one, or I don't know, page 4 or 5 of like this massive pack of insurance underwriting stuff. And specifically, I want you to kind of pay attention to this section 7, where it says, only bother filling this in if you want cyber liability coverage. So cyber liability coverage is a specific package that you can buy, and we recommend heavily that all of our customers have this. It's a specific package, kind of like having fire insurance or slip and fall insurance or flood insurance, are all specific different things. Cyber liability coverage is a specific package or coverage that needs to be added to your account. If you don't have it, as soon as we get done here, call your insurance underwriter, please. But if you wanted that, if you specifically wanted that package or that coverage from this particular underwriter, what they're specifically asking for, what we found was really interesting, was that they went so far as to specifically naming a few different packages, like, do you use endpoint detection and response or next-gen antivirus software, i.e. CrowdStrike, Cylance, Carbon Black, to secure all system endpoints. Now, there's probably 15 or 20 strong products in the marketplace for a endpoint detection and response product. But what they're specifically telegraphing is, tell me you're not using the world's cheapest antivirus, that you have no idea if it's been up to date. Do you have a plan? Are you using the best product out there possible for securing your endpoints, your Windows, your servers, your Macs, your iPhones and iPads and Android devices, all system endpoints? So this is like, we have to help our clients answer these questions when they come from their insurance underwriters. So I found it very important to bring this to you, to kind of show you that this is a reality. If you say no to this, what's going to happen is your rates are going to go up, and or they may not insure you. It's their choice. So that's kind of the underlying thing. And so what we wanted to dig in here then quickly is to the idea of what is, because there's obviously some gray areas. They're talking EDR, endpoint detection and response, or next generation antivirus. Well, let's talk about what's the basic understanding here about what do these products do, what do they not do, and what's the difference between antivirus and that best of breed product that they're recommending, the EDR. So in short, what an antivirus product at the basic, and again, we're talking a little bit in generalities because some products from some manufacturers bill themselves as next generation antivirus, and they're doing a few things that bleed over into other categories. But most of your traditional antivirus products, the things that come with Windows or that are often bundled with the computer when you buy it from Office Depot or Dell or whomever, they're traditionally more of the traditional antivirus product. What antivirus does is it protects really well against known threats. It's like if we know about a virus, and we've had time, like days, weeks, months, to write a cure for it, we can protect against that. What they do is a lot of them nowadays do continuous learning with cloud and artificial intelligence, and I put that in quotes because it's not really super science fiction grade artificial intelligence. It's more like machine learning, which is not bad. But they're always learning. In the old days, we used to have to download signatures every day or 4 times a day, and now antivirus products are kind of using a cloud database for signatures, or a lot of them are. They and I totally messed this one up. I'm gonna correct myself. Full offsite logging into a searchable database. They don't do that. So I'm going to fix that as we speak. So yeah, pardon me for that. But they do not have the ability to do full offsite logging into a searchable database. We're going to correct that as we speak. Other things that it can do is partial monitoring of running processes. A process is like a program that's running. The idea there is if WinWord.exe, for example, if WinWord.exe is running because you're typing up a Word document, that's a running process. And maybe WinWord.exe is blessed by your antivirus product, but maybe it's got a virus embedded in it, or maybe you opened up a Word document that had a virus embedded in it. What they do is they do provide partial prevention of malwareless attacks that misuse admin tools, tactics, and procedures. In fairness, some of the better basic antivirus products do provide some ability to see that maybe somebody shouldn't run PowerShell or some of the built-in command programs into Windows. Some of the better ones have the ability to see that and maybe block that process. What they do is they do provide partial protection against advanced persistent threats. Some of them do, and an advanced persistent threat is, in simplest, it is a hook. It is a spot where the hacker or the criminal or the future malware is set to deploy and preparing kind of their landing beach. So the advanced persistent threats has been, and defending against those has been a huge thing in recent years. It's basically looking for places where the hackers have established a foothold into your environment. Maybe they have a virus that, or a malware program that is just able to do one little thing, keep the hacker in. So what they don't do is they don't provide, what an antivirus program does not do is it does not provide any degree of threat hunting. It can scan your computer, but it can't look to see if is the hacker actively working in the environment. They cannot do automatic client isolation in most cases. In other words, if your computer gets infected with a virus, it can't isolate it from the rest of the network. If the computer starts acting poorly, it can't automatically grab it and take it off the network. It cannot do full monitoring of running processes. This is an important thing because, again, what we're seeing a lot of cases is that the hackers are able to take over known good programs like they did in SolarWinds. In the SolarWinds environment, no real full-blown malware got deployed as the full attack. They just infected the known good, previously blessed SolarWinds programs and executables. They don't provide a full prevention of malwareless, and that's a mouthful, but a malwareless attack. In other words, that's an attack where the hacker does not even need to use a software version of a crowbar to get in. If they have the keys, if they've got your username, your passwords, and they're in the networks some other way, they don't need to use malware to get into your stuff. They're already there. So a true antivirus does not prevent against that. They don't provide full protection against those, what they call APTs, advanced persistent threats. And they don't do classification of all running processes, which is an important thing. We'll talk about that in just a second under the term zero threat or zero trust. They don't allow only trusted items to run. So they're looking for more for what they know should not run. And that's a big difference. So now let's look at the other side of the coin. If this is what antivirus does and does not do, then what about the other thing? What about EDR, endpoint detection and response? What does it do? Brandon, did you have some thoughts on this one you wanted to throw in?
Yeah, absolutely. So building on what you kind of led us up to, where we end up now and what the recommendations are is the endpoint detection and response. And that takes that antivirus that built into a next-gen antivirus and now has evolved into this to I guess a newer level. And the way I like to think of an EDR is that it's more paranoid, I think, than the next-gen antivirus, and it just assumes that things are bad until proven otherwise. One of the things that came up a lot during the era that the next-gen antivirus was coming out was the idea of sandboxing. So with these advanced persistent threats, if something was maybe unfamiliar, a little bit unusual, a lot of the next-gen antiviruses would sandbox it, and they would run it in this isolated, kind of protected memory space for a short period of time, a few seconds a lot of times, to see if it did anything unusual, and if not, they would let it run on the computer. What's happening now, especially with these attacks that are using what is ordinarily a good piece of software or a good program to do a bad thing, that sandboxing doesn't really get it. So assuming that these things are bad and monitoring them more closely, continuing, not just releasing them and moving on, but continuing to watch them as they take actions in your environment, in your computer or in your servers. What happens is, in addition to being paranoid, the EDR is taking notes the whole time. So if something does happen, it lets us build this picture where we can go back and we can see everything that it did. So a sequence of what looks like innocent behavior now starts to look like it's it's something that's doing malicious actions, or it may be trying to exfiltrate data, or it's trying to bring in a different payload or something. So it's more active, it's less trusting, and it's taking notes, I think, are the best way to look at an EDR compared to the next-gen antivirus.
You bet. You bet. Having the ability to deliver those logs is one of the largest things that we're finding useful. And kind of the last 2 points here that we've got on this slide is allow research of incidents using real-time timelines and graphs. The better EDR products do just what you're talking about, Brandon, and certainly the ones that we use with our clients is they allow us to see, okay, this program here ran, and then it attempted to do this, or it went from there and it connected to this other computer and it downloaded a file, and then it connected to this server over here. And that's the sort of big picture analysis of what's going on that has just never been there with antivirus. With a traditional antivirus, or even the next gen antivirus products, if it's possible to rebuild that storyline, what we've seen is just thousands of man hours is required to build the logs and try to understand and piece together this storyline of here's what actually happened. So that's some of the key massive features that we want to kind of lay out. Another way that I can put it is possibly more of a graphical perspective of what antivirus versus EDR is. This is a simple kind of outline graphic that some of the big researchers have put together based on our awareness of what the hackers have done in the last few massive attacks and over the last few years. And all of these steps up here, we won't dig in gross detail, but all of these steps up here from establishing and maintaining their tools on your systems to testing their capabilities, all that takes months and months and months in many cases. In the Hafnium attack, we're seeing some of those took 5, 6, 7 months, if not longer. In the SolarWinds attack, we really don't know how long they took to prep for this, but it was obviously a long time before we even knew it. But in a specifically only antivirus environment, if all you had is antivirus software, you're only going to know about the attack if you have reached the stage of impact. At the end, when they have encrypted your computers, then you will know, because your antivirus product alerts and says, hey, somebody's trying to encrypt me. If you have a next-gen antivirus, you might get a notice when you're a little further up the chain. But Harold?
Yeah, so to talk a little bit about this, we have frameworks for security and such that we follow, and this is kind of that framework that the attacker follows, and that intersection between pre-attack and post-attack is referred to as the boom. It's when they have accomplished their mission and have gotten into your network.
Yeah.
Left of boom, the advantage is the attacker. Just like securing your house, you can lock down and everything like that, but he can sit there and pick away until he finds a way of getting into your home. When he gets into your home post-attack, you're now at the advantage, because now on the pre-attack, he only has to be right once to get into your network. Post-attack, now he's in. Now your advantage is finding him. If he breaks in your house, you have a gun, you find him, he's dead. So same thing here is we're hunting for him. We're on the advantage now, so we're having to hunt him. But if you have your house and you have no gun and no one in your house to look for him, then he can rumble around and do whatever he wants. So it's to have these tools in place, we can have the advantage and be able to find him before he takes your stuff out of your house or kills your children or whatever the case is, or what he's trying to accomplish.
Or encrypts your files.
Or encrypts your files, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think another good thing to point out, just building on what Harold said, is the attackers, the bad actors that we're talking about here. This is not just one guy in a room in a hoodie with a laptop, just doing this out of boredom. I mean, these are very sophisticated attacks. A lot of times there's organizations and there's a lot of money behind it. And I mean, some of it's based on political ideology and those sorts of things. But in a lot of cases, this is a business. And it has all the trappings and the structure and the methodologies that a business employs. I mean, there's a lot of research that goes into their part of honing their techniques and being efficient and not being detected, that you can see from this graphic all the steps that are being gone through. It's like a full scale product release for them, that they develop all of this and are prepared to execute it this way.
Absolutely, Brandon. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. Now, I'm not talking about on the side that we're on. I'm talking about on the other side. It's a multi-billion-dollar business that they're, and because they're succeeding at this. And again, they have their own support systems, their own software developers, their own complete ecosystem that is in the, on the dark web that they use to do this. So it's out in the open in their criminal world, and as well as, like we said, in the case of the SolarWinds, or even the Hafnium attack, is some nation states behind it as well, that have other motives. But when the door has been kicked open, just like a riot, when you kick the door open with a Hafnium, because he had a political agenda, he wanted to break the window open, all the guys run in and start taking the TVs that could care less about the political aspects. They just want to make money. And that's what we had with the Hafnium, So, I mean, it is what it is. Yeah.
And really, it's just, when you think about how big and how complex and how much money is behind this, and then you think about trying to protect your system with a free antivirus that's been around since the year 2000, that comes in the mail or comes free with your computer, that really puts it in perspective. You're fighting a very large enemy with a very small weapon or a very small shield.
You bet. Well, we have a limited amount of time, and I know this is a huge conversation for a lot of organizations. So I wanted to kind of put one last little look on this, is that a fair analysis of this is that EDR does not fix all of your problems. It does not implement human 24/7 monitoring of everything. And does not solve all the problems. I always love it when I get the question, okay, so if we do this one tool, we're safe then, right? This is all we need. And unfortunately, it does not remove the need for a full stack of cybersecurity protections. There's things like cybersecurity awareness training and patch management and a good firewall and backups and all the multi-factor, all the other things that it fits in correctly with. It is the current modern tool that we need for that section of endpoint protection, but it does not accomplish all protections. It does not close all the windows and secure all the borders possible where hackers can get in. So it's important to know that. The next thing that it leads to, and I kind of wanted to throw this out there, is SIM and SOC, and we throw those terms out a lot. Brandon, can you kind of give us maybe a 30,000-foot view of what those mean?
Yeah, definitely, and I'm sensitive to how much time we have in there, so I could elaborate, but I'll try and keep it brief. The SIM is basically, it's a collection repository for a bunch of logs. 15, 20 years ago, we would do security log monitoring by hand. We would have technicians go log into a router or a firewall and just read through the logs and say, yeah, it looks like nothing bad's happened here, and we move on to the next one. The volume of logs that are produced now in 2021, everything produces logs. Your printers are producing logs, your computers, your thermostats, I mean, just everything, these IoT devices that are everywhere. And then in turn, they generate a lot more internet traffic. So your firewall is generating more logs. It's impossible for a person to do manual log reviews like we used to. So what we do is we collect all of those events and into a central system, a central database called a SIM. And just on that, there's some automated triggers that get built in, and we have certain signature type things that we look for. There's some AI that's involved in it that'll highlight things, that'll bring it to somebody's attention. But its main thing is just to look for flaming hot problems, and it might send an email about it, or just produce a red light if we log into it. But it's there. It collects and saves the logs to be looked at later. Other than that, it's a pretty passive system. Where the SOC comes into play, that's human. And that involves a combination of much more advanced AI and machine learning that helps to focus these security analysts. The security analysts then take that and they correlate what they see out of the SIM with certain threat feeds that are coming from industry. There's, I don't know, there's probably 10 to 15 real common security threat feeds that are out there. Some of them come from the government, some of them come from private industry or consortiums of private industry. And so the SOC team uses those and the SIM to come up with actionable data. They'll notify you or notify your team that there's a problem, that something needs to be addressed, and that you can take action. In a lot of cases, there's a short SLA that they are contracted for, so they're going to let you know within perhaps 30 minutes of something showing up in a log that there's a problem that needs attention. So these are again additional building blocks that add to those things like the EDR that might feed logs into the SIM that can be analyzed by the SOC.
Yeah, Brandon, they use a product typically called a SOAR, which is security orchestration response. It has some automated things that AI does that, but the end result is that human being is what that security, that SOC is. It's that human aspect.
Yep. So there's a lot to understand, and I think there's well, even in this rather simple subject and conversation around just antivirus, what it might be most useful is to really hone in on what Brandon said, the specific idea of building blocks. So thinking from that perspective, the old building block of antivirus used to be the tool that was really required to handle endpoint security. It met the needs at the time for most organizations. Where we are now in the world, with having to understand and be able to replay the logs of what happened, protect against things that aren't even viruses that are attacking our endpoints, is that what we need now is to replace the antivirus, what we're recommending, and insurance underwriters and HIPAA and the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and pretty much everybody we've heard from in the last few years, is that you replace your antivirus with something called an endpoint detection and response product, so that it can look for those untrusted behaviors, file blocking, as like antivirus did, more analysis and proactive capabilities. What more and more organizations are adding on to that is the ability to have a SIM, that's that security incident and event monitoring database, where we can go back and replay those logs and analyze the data, and have, like Brandon said, the automated triggers around this is kind of an odd behavior, we should look at this, or all the building blocks again for a more automated and human-driven rapid response to things. And that last third piece is a SOC. It's that informed event and alerting and assistance. It's humans and the AI and the SIM and a really good EDR that can feed all that data up to it, analyze it based on what's going on in your entire environment and the rest of the world across all of their clients and the rest of the community, and really make the best decisions. And that's kind of where we get to this magic quadrant or this magical Venn diagram of the more tools you have overlapping protecting you and your endpoints, the more protected you are, and the more your flexibility is in the event of an attack, the more prepared you are to be able to answer the really tough questions that your insurance underwriters and so many more organizations like the IRS and the FBI will more than likely inevitably ask.
Yeah, so the EDR is taking some of, I mean, it has some of those human beings behind it, which is your AV is strictly machine. It's strictly a computer doing something. Whereas the EDR does have people in some of that, but it's only looking at a subset of the real data. The SIM and the SOC take in all telemetry, all data from all your devices and looks for that threat, not just hitting your workstation, but hitting your routers, your switches, and other devices they can manipulate and make use of to do their attack.
Yep, that's the truth. All right. Well, that kind of wraps everything that we really wanted to talk about today. We have we're a few minutes over, and I appreciate y'all's patience and joining with us and hanging on to the end. If there's any questions, by all means, we'll hang out here for a few more minutes. If after this you want to send in a question that you thought of, by all means, shoot us an email at ask@tcas.la or call us at 225-751-4444 or head over to our website, www.tks.la. And when you're there, please note that there are a ton of other valuable resources from our Facebook website page, where we've got a ton of feeds on a daily basis, a lot of weeks where we're sending out new information, tech tips, really good stuff there. Our Twitter account, follow us on Twitter and you'll find a ton of other information there. Our LinkedIn page, we're putting more and more videos up there. Our website, where we have tons of blogs and articles and more valuable resources for you and your planning for these sort of things. If you'd like to as well, we have a weekly tech tip email. We send out a newsletter. We're just doing whatever we can, folks, to educate our clients and the community to prepare you for what we believe is probably an inevitable attack against your organization at some point or another. So we want to make sure that you are as prepared for success in those events as possible. Our next event's going to be in about a month like this. We hope to see you then. Tell your friends, tell your coworkers, your boss, whomever, and your team, and we look forward to having you here. We'll be announcing the subject and the date and time and how we can get together then shortly on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and whatnot. And we look forward to seeing you then. Thank you all very much for your time, for your business, for your trust. We sincerely appreciate you, and we look forward to doing whatever we can to protect and serve you as we go forward. Have a great day, y'all.